Hello, everybody. This is Tom Eckert here. You're listening to my podcast, Numerology, a GPS for the soul. This is your place to learn about the true power of numerology and how to use it to bring out the best in yourself, understand your loved ones better, take wise decisions, and prepare for your future. In other words, how to live your life aligned with your true destiny. Take your time to educate yourself and share these podcasts with your friends and family so they too can enjoy the great benefits of numerology. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to all my listeners. If you are new here, welcome. In this podcast, we discuss numerology as a path for inner transformation, inner growth, self-understanding, and spiritual expansion. My personal approach is to try to make numerology accessible and grounded. In other words, applicable for everyday life matters to help you use numerology and utilize its strength to change your life, transform your patterns, and also be able to live in alignment with your higher purpose. A few important things you should know about if you want to dive deeper into numerology. Firstly, I highly recommend you get yourself a numerology reading if you want to really feel the impact and the inspiration of numerology and the way it can unpack and reveal who you are, what you're meant to be, the potentials and the challenges that constitute your journey. If you're interested, feel free to contact me through my website link. It's provided in the podcast and the episode description. Secondly, if you're defining or redefining your career and wish to pursue numerology as a career, I want you to know that I offer a full path of certification from beginner to expert numerologist. Again, check out the links provided in the podcast and episode description to read more about the numerology in-depth studies. And lastly, if you enjoy this podcast and want to keep learning more quality numerology and support my work, make sure to click the follow and subscribe button on the platform you're listening from and become part of my numerology family and get updated with my latest podcast episodes. Now, without further ado, let us dive into today's interesting topic, which is going to reveal to us how many numbers, how many calculations do we actually really need to know in order to reveal the real character of any person that we meet. Numerology consists of so many calculations and numbers that tell the story of who we are. But do we really need to know so many numbers in order to understand the main character and making of a person? How many numbers and locations in a chart do we actually need to know in order to really understand a person deeply? The answer may surprise you. On the one hand, many people tend to say, I'm a 5, or I'm a 3, I'm a 7, whatever. Other people tend to focus on all their core numbers. I'm a 5 and an 11 this, and a 3 here, and a 7 there, and a 9 here. Some of them even focus on their period cycles or challenges when trying to depict who they really are. Truth is, one approach is too flat or shallow, and the other is a bit too convoluted and too filled with details and much harder to make out of it something cohesive and easy to understand. But the truth is that we only need 3 major numbers from anybody's chart in order to know who they really are. And these numbers are the life path, expression, and soul urge numbers. It's pretty astonishing. 3 locations, 3 calculations can reveal so much. For those of you, by the way, who know a bit about astrology, it's a bit similar when you think about it, right? Most people will tell you their zodiac sign, but in fact, what they only tell you about is their sun sign. While there's also the ascendant and also the moon, right? And the moon sign and so forth. It's interesting that these 3 are in some way similar to the 3 locations I just mentioned in numerology. Of all core numbers and of all numbers in our chart in general, these 3 numbers constitute the greater part of what and who we are. In many ways, the rest is just details or nuances. But as far as our personality, character, destiny, and deepest motives are concerned, these 3 core numbers tell us almost all we need to know. When you think about it, it sounds almost crazy, at least for me. How can 3 numbers tell me so much? Well, they can. And the point is, we must learn the numbers well, the locations well, and also the interaction between these numbers well. Without these fundamentals in place, and by only interpreting these numbers as standalones, we won't be able to unpack all the profound knowledge that they hold. You see, many websites, many books out there teach you many calculations. They teach you all kinds of as I said, like period cycles and different forms of charts and essence numbers and the mental plane and emotional plane and so on. But in the end of the day, it doesn't really help you kind of like take the information that you have and integrate it. But surprisingly, if you really learn to understand the numbers properly, you learn to understand the locations properly, and then the interaction between those components, you'll be surprised how only 3 numbers can reveal most of what's needed to know about you. As I said, right, most of what's needed to know about you. But truly, I always tell my numerology students, when you analyze a person's chart, don't scatter your energies. Simply focus on their 3 core numbers. Once you got that right, everything else is only branches. You get it? So basically, once you get that clear, everything else is almost like embellishments on the real core, on the real root or spine of the chart, the skeleton. The life path, expression, and soul urge numbers hold almost all the information you need to know about the deepest structure, motive, urges, wishes, capacities, destiny, potentials, blockages, and even traumas of a person. And so our job as numerologists is to know how to read these interactions and these numbers well, and basically weave them into a coherent, sensible storyline. Now, before one interprets specific locations or even interactions, it's important to understand, and please listen to this carefully because this is very important. It's important to understand that all the 3 core numbers that I mentioned before can be said to determine all of these above mentioned fundamentals. Fundamentals, I mean all those qualities, the capacities, the structures, the motives, the wishes, the destiny, the potentials, right? So normally, if you read in books, you will see that, let's say, the life path pertains more to the destiny, whereas the soul urge pertains more to wishes and aspirations, and the expression number pertains more to manifestation. But there's also a deeper truth. And the deeper truth is that because these numbers are so fundamental and so influential in our chart, in a sense, they all come together and determine all of these above mentioned fundamentals. Because from a certain perspective, they simply merge into one whole energy, and they simply define who you are, your likes, your dislikes, your desires, your enjoyments, your potentials and weaknesses, and your destiny as a whole. So before you interpret them as separate, functionalities, it's important to actually understand them as one unit that blends into a whole that simply describes everything about you. Everything about you. So in a way, right, when a person says, I'm a 7, or I'm a 5, or I'm a 1. It's not really true, because you cannot separate those elements. This is why I truly always recommend that to my students, just look at these 3 core numbers and get an idea of the person you're looking at or you're interacting with, right? If I have, I don't know, a one expression number, one life path number, let's say a 4 expression number and an 8 soul urge number, then to say I'm a 1 would really not tell us much about you. But when I see that you're a 148, a 148, I will know that you're a much more focused type. You're a very strong-willed personality. Whereas if you were 135, I would know that you are a more free or childlike or youthful personality, and that in both cases, the 1 was the life path. So you understand, it's like I look at it as a whole, as a blend. Now let's take a step deeper. But before doing that, I want to just quickly remind you that I highly recommend getting yourself a numerology reading. That's really one of the best ways to feel the life-changing effects and power of numerology. All you need to do is contact me directly through the links to my website that are provided in the podcast and episode descriptions. Also, if you wish to pursue numerology as a career, I'm reminding you that I offer a full path of certification from beginner to expert numerologist. Again, check out the links provided and read more about the in-depth studies. And of course, if you enjoy this podcast and want to keep learning more quality numerology and support my work, make sure to click the follow or subscribe button on the platform you're listening from and become part of my numerology family and get updated with my latest podcast episodes. So, when analyzing a chart, you want to be able to look at the 3 core numbers both as a blend, as I mentioned a moment ago, but also as separate locations. Let's say you have a life path 5, expression number 8, and a soul urge 9. Just another example. To begin with, you can forget all about the locations. Forget what's life path, what's expression number, and what's soul urge, and simply ask yourself, how do 5, 8, and 9 blend into forming a personality, a destiny, a life experience? How do these energies blend and behave together? So at first, I don't even care about the particular locations. But rather I see I see 3 core numbers as core elements forming a person's blueprint and foundation. So the 5, 8, 9 is fiery, experimental, daring, full of energy, loves experience, it is full of drive, it's very passionate, and so on. Okay, I didn't really particularly talk about the life path, the expression, the soul urge, or particular functionalities. I simply described the general flair of the personality. Who am I, right? Who am I dealing with? Now, much more can be said. I'm just giving you an example. For example, it is a very exploratory type, but also less intimate, right? So we can also look at the weaknesses. It is very capable, but sometimes doesn't see others, and so on, right? So I can learn a whole lot of information, both about the strengths, but also weaknesses of that person, just by analyzing these 3 core numbers from many angles. Okay, so the next step, right? So I said it's good to look at them as a blend, but also a separate location. So now we're kind of like slowly starting to make a smaller separation. So first we look at all 3 as one. Now I highly recommend looking at numbers also as pairs. So take any pair. In this case, that would be 5 and 8, 5 and 9, and 8 and 9. And then ask yourself, how do these behave Again, you're sticking only to 3 core calculations, 3 core numbers, but you're playing with all the possible interactions. Now, that's a further zooming in and further specification. So, for example, in our case, 5 and 8 is more sensual, electric, also manipulative. 5-9 is more free, open, generous, and has an international flair. 8-9 is highly ambitious, capable, and fearless. So hey, suddenly we kind of branched out a bit. We opened or unpacked this whole, personality even more. And then, as a last step, I could explore a bit the numbers as standalones, right? I can explore a bit, describing the 5, which has more to do with freedom, sensuality, curiosity, adventure. I can look at the 8 and talk about the ambitiousness, the power, the intensity, the achievement-based kind of like, or willful personality. I can also talk about the 9 and its universality, the big heart, the generosity, being a world citizen. You see how I'm kind of starting from like a more of a oneness and then slowly kind of branching out into the details. To me, that's a better way to kind of really describe a story. Remember that with all those stages, both, the stage where you look at all the numbers as one unit, the second stage where you look at pairs of numbers, and also the last stage where you look at like single numbers, standalone numbers, you can always also describe the shadow side. And in fact, that's important if you really want to understand a person as a whole. So the bottom line of this episode is to show you that with very little, you can know a whole lot. In fact, so much that you could fill an entire session of numerology reading. That's pretty mind-blowing. As I always say, it's not about learning many, many things or calculations, but rather knowing the right things in depth. So mastering the fundamentals deeply. That's what really makes one into a master of numerology. So, as always, I really hope this kind of like sparks your interest in numerology. I hope this keeps inspiring you to go deeper and explore numerology. And don't forget, if you wish to get a numerology reading, contact me through my website links. If you wish to pursue numerology as a career, remember that I offer a full path of certification from beginner to expert numerologist. And if you enjoy this podcast, my friend, and want to keep learning more quality numerology and support my work, make sure to click the follow or subscribe button on the platform you're listening from and become part of my numerology family and get updated with my latest podcast episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this inspired you. And as always, I'll see you in the next episodes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, and you want to go deeper into numerology, check out my website, tom-eckert.com. You can also book a numerology reading or even study numerology yourself through my courses. I'll see you in the next episode.